Hi, the question for this week, we're discussing wearables. What are the health promotion advantages of wearables, especially for individuals at risk for or attempting to manage chronic disease conditions? What challenges do wearables pose? What are the population health implications of wearables? First, we'll introduce wearables. Um, 1 in 6 people, or 15% of consumers in the United States, were currently wearing them, and that was in 2016. Technology, including smartwatches or fitness bands. While 19 million fitness devices were likely to be sold in 2016, the number, even way back then, was predicted to grow to 110 million by 2018. I'll bet you we succeeded that. I think now they said it was 1 in 3 people have a fitness device or a wearable. Some of us even have multiple ones. If you have an iWatch, you probably have an iPhone, and both of those can be used also. There are so many different health advantages to wearables, but it's also important that you need to remind your patients it never takes place of a clinical assessment. The most popular wearables are the ones that track fitness, of course. While increasing fitness activity helps to decrease the risk of several diseases, it can help control your diabetes, your anxiety, your high blood pressure. The list goes on and on. Your cardiac health, especially, and it's kind of all related to obesity, which is problematic for a majority of the population. There are now ways to measure the patient's activity. There's a device in your shoes. There's one that clips on your clothing. You got the smartwatch, you've got the Fitbit, you've got the Garmin, and there's also ones that, there's a new one that is a device that goes on your finger, just like your ring, and of course the smartphones. So the majority of these devices are monitored by an app that helps you monitor your physical activity. Of course, limited physical activity because it can't measure everything and it's not 100% accurate. This app can be shared with your healthcare provider or anyone else you wish to share your physical activity with. Let's say it's a teenager and they're being monitored by their parents. I actually have personally shared my app with my healthcare provider, not syncing continuously. However, though, I have shared it with him, showing him that I am increasing my physical activity and how this would relate to my blood pressures. The very interesting thing, though, that I loved about the reading was that some devices can help prevent falls for the aging population. I work in geriatrics, and falls is a huge concern. It's just terrible. The wearables can detect and manage adverse health conditions in aging populations. However, most of the aging population that I have dealt with is not a big fan of wearables. However, the baby boomers in that generation are beginning to buy several wearables. The wearable devices have great potential to be used in fall prevention among older adults, not just fall recovery, fall prevention. Give you a brief rundown. Falls occur in 30% or 30 to 60% of older adults each year, and 10 to 20% of that result in injury, hospitalization, or even death. And those facts remain true, if not getting a little worse now because of the pandemic. People are staying home more and are not reporting falls, and they're injured and they don't get to the hospitals. It's difficult to determine all the causative factors for a fall based on investigations that occur after a fall occurs, which is what we're doing mostly now. Being able to prevent the fall from occurring in the first place could be life-saving for many. One advantage to the wearables is that health providers have access to more data than we've ever had. The newest one that I've seen is the blood sugar monitors. The ones that go on the back of your arm, that's for subcutaneous. I actually put one in a patient the other day. We can monitor patients' blood sugar almost continuously now. With a device they put on the back of their arm, they simply take their smartphone, sync it up, as long as you get in the right position, and you can know your blood sugar. However, this provides almost too much information to a patient and their healthcare provider about their blood sugars. It's better to watch a trend in your blood sugars than to continuously watch your blood sugars, especially if you're taking medications or insulin that can adjust. Some of the disadvantages, the ability to have access to your healthcare 24/7 can be overwhelming. This can often lead to anxiety, added stress on the individual caused by them focusing on the information provided by the wearable device and how they're currently feeling. Having a watch on your wrist that can run and take your ECG anytime the owner wishes may be too much information for the general public sometimes. Having access to all this information and not knowing how to interpret the findings can be disastrous for some patients. I think it's great for patients to be able to have access to an ECG on their arm. Do I think it's 100% beneficial? No, but it's a fancy device and it made it more profitable. More people went out and bought it, which is the idea behind the watch, is getting people to purchase it. Like I said, I think it's a great idea for patients, but I also think it's great that we tell them this is not a real, this is not a 12-lead ECG. We need to go to the hospital and get checked out if you're having any symptoms. If you're just playing around on the back porch and you want to check it out for no reason, that's fine, do it. But if you're having any serious symptoms or conditions, you need to go get checked out by either emergency department, primary care, wherever you need to go. I've started to see the wearables are becoming very trendy. For a while, then we get used to them. The wearables now, they have these nice watches. They have different designs on them. You have different faces. You have all these different parts of it. The problem is that it's looking like a fad. We can start to ignore the nudges to get exercise. My watch right now tells me every hour that I don't stand up, which is not very often. It also tells me how much exercise I've got in the day, if it's about the same amount, if I'm doing better, doing worse. The problem is it's very easy to ignore it. I just tap my watch. And you can start to ignore the nudges to get exercise. Some of the wearables are at risk for what's called, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, attitration, which is a gradual reducing the strength of effectiveness of someone for something they've sustained pressure through sustained attack or pressure. A constant reminder to get up and exercise might be beneficial at first, but if the nudges continue every hour, there's a possibility the individuals will start to ignore the nudges or just remove the wearables. That's all you need to do is just take it off and you don't get the nudges anymore. Because it can be stressful having to keep up with all the nudges. And like I said, it's made by Apple, or I'm sorry, the one I have is made by Apple, and their design is to help, like any fad diet, it's going to last about 6 months. And then you're going to end up either ignoring it, setting it up different, or something. So we need to figure out something that works best for the patient to be able to keep their healthcare goals. If we're not careful, obsessing over the numbers and readings can impact the mental well-being, was an article by Dr. Fishman had done, a cardiologist who was discussing the ECG monitoring for the Apple Watch. Continuously using an ECG monitoring isn't going to change your readings, the readings you receive, or what's going on in your body. However, if you keep monitoring the heart rate monitor, you could get changes. I have watched personally my heart rate change after doing some meditation or deep breathing exercises when prompted by my watch actually. I can see my heart rate actually lower. And so that's a positive. And then I can see the numbers, like I went from a pulse of 100 down to a pulse of 84 was the most recent change. When monitoring heart rate, patients need to know that being able to monitor your heart rate is great, but it's very important you focus on how you're feeling, not just the results of your wearable device. We have some patients, I know my brother personally, he chronically has a heart rate of 45. That is his heart rate. He's just in chronic bradycardia. The doctors have looked at it and everything. His device, he does have an iWatch. His device goes off frequently, saying he has a low heart rate. But the important thing is to take that little piece of information and be able to interpret that and use that as part of a analysis, not the complete picture. I've had calls from family members with new smartwatches who are anxious because their watch is telling them their vitals have changed. They're not having any signs or symptoms of cardiac events, but since the watch is telling them that something is off, now we're starting to see symptoms of anxiety and shortness of breath as they're watching their watch and using their watch to tell them how they're feeling. Kind of creates like a hypochondria type thing where, oh my God, I should be having this symptom, so I'm going to be having it. What are the population health implications of the wearables? The current population is almost overwhelmed by information about their health. It is so amazing everything we can learn and discover about our bodies. About 10 years ago, or maybe more than that, people were monitoring their vitals by a scale in the bathroom. Maybe your one of those wrist blood pressure machines that their doctor told them to buy. However, now we have a one lead EKG, ECG on our watches, and it can continuously monitor our temperature and SpO2, which is just amazing. I never thought we'd be having this technology. However, we need to remember this data is just a minimal part of the patient's overall health. We also have a watch that can tell you how many hours you were standing during the day, how long you were exercising, which stages of sleep you were in at night, and when and how many steps you've taken in a day. The population is more knowledgeable about certain aspects of what's being monitored. They may be, like many of us, they make appointments because of something is being off, or they're so somebody the other day called the office and needed to be checked out urgently because their watch was telling them that they were having abnormal heartbeats. Well, what was happening was they were actually on a bike and their watch band kept slipping. So that was kind of tying up medical time that did not need to be tied up. That would not have been without the wearable. They may be trying to prevent a heart attack, just like the one they saw on TV. There's been advertisements on TV that because I had my Apple Watch on, I was able to prevent a heart attack. Well, everybody wants to prevent a heart attack. Therefore, they're all going out and trying to buy these Apple Watches or buying their Apple Watches for people that their loved ones. Some people are living in constant worry that they need to make sure their vitals are always being monitored, which we know doesn't usually change the vitals unless you're having anxiety. I believe wearables are a double-edged sword. It provides patients with more information than they've ever had access to previously. It may also guide them to make more informed decisions about their health care. It can nudge them to make healthier choices, like you're at 9,000 steps for the day. Let's try to get to 10,000, and then you get the little firework on your watch there, or on your Fitbit, whatever device you're wearing. The problem is access to quality, relevant health information. All this information coming at you is almost overwhelming anymore. The one example from the book was vaccines. Well, through the book and some of the readings, vaccines were breakthroughs. Oh my God, they were wonderful for many, many years. Then in 1998, Andrew Wakefield and his colleagues changed all that when they published the research of a connection between the MMR and autism. This spooked the parents worldwide, and immunization rates for measles, mumps, and rubella have never fully recovered, despite the paper being renounced by 10 of the 13 authors and later retracted by the medical journal Lancet, where it was published. The population appears to be paying attention more to medical research, but the problem is that they are paying attention to fraudulent information. I think as a healthcare provider, it's my obligation to direct patients and others in the population of accurate health information. I think that when a patient tells me that they're not vaccinating because of autism, it's my job to listen to their concerns and also provide them with additional education. They, of course, are encouraged to make their own healthcare decision, but also make an educated healthcare decision. I think it's important to be able to educate the population that despite having access to all the information from the wearables, the focus needs to be on discussing concerns about the information with their primary care provider and not relying on the wearables as anything more than a data collection tool that's being used. And the problem with that is that these data collection tools are used because they think that's what everybody wants to monitor. And their goal is to buy another watch, buy the most updated watch. Why have a watch that only monitors your pulse when you can have one that does an ECG, does your SpO2, does your temperature? You might as well get them a better watch, which of course is probably going to run you about $500-600. Overall, I believe that wearables are great. I have a watch on my wrist that nudges me when I have a meeting coming up. It's time to take my medications. It's time to stand up and exercise. I've also found my watch to be very beneficial for me throughout the day. I also understand that the watch is designed by the companies to be purchased. So it's a double-edged sword. You kind of have to take it and leave it, and just remember that the wearables, the information is a very small part of an overall clinical assessment. Thank you.